Good morning. I'm back again. It's the 18th of May, and I've been absent for a couple of weeks, but I want to get with you again today and continue where we left off. I want to start with the scripture this morning, and it's Matthew 16:24. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. And what an amazing life that is to follow the Lord. The steps of a righteous man are ordered by God, and no man knows what a day holds. Things change so quick, and things can change so dramatically. In the late 80s, we were very, very, very busy in the prisons, in and out of each and every one of them, from Elmore, Staten, Red Eagle, the Honor Farm, Holman. We were all over the North Alabama, South Alabama. We were just about everywhere. But most of my time was spent inside Staten and Red Eagle and Elmore. And we didn't realize how much we needed help in them days. But in I guess it was like January 1990, we had a visit from a couple from England, Brian and Lil Taylor. They'd been friends of Angie's for many, many years, wonderfully saved, and Angie had fellowship with them for a long time. And I got to know them. In fact, they were at our wedding in the 77. And they come over for a vacation to see us in January, I guess, of 1990. And they really felt impressed during that time to come in and stay with us. They were had their own business and they were doing pretty well in life, but they felt like God wanted them to come over and visit us in the prisons and work in those prisons with us. So I just said, I'd love to, because they're an amazing couple, just loved the Lord with all our hearts and just on fire for God. And Brian was an evangelist at heart, and he felt like it was his calling in life to come. So in September of 1990, they came. Both of them came, and right away with Dr. Mary Ralph, that was sponsoring Angie and I, they got involved in those prisons right away. And it wasn't long after that Brian had come. He was a volunteer chaplain in in Staten. In 1991, Rachel was born. Ruth Ann was born. The last of our own babies was born in 1991. And at the same time, in January that year, Big Jimmy came out of prison and Howard came out of prison. So our house was pretty full. But we had Brian and Lil working with us. And now I've got Jimmy and Howard living with us. Dr. Ralph invited us to go and have a look at some property. We were busy. You talk about busy. We looked at some property. She realized that we had these men with us and we needed a bigger place to live. So Angie and I went scouting out, and we found a place, 4 bedrooms on, I think it was 8.5 acres, 10 acres, beautiful place. And we decided that was the place. We paid $115,000 for it. Dr. Ralph had paid that fee. And so we had a beautiful place, and that was in 91. Things were moving real quick. Big Jimmy moved with us. Howard left us where we lived in Fairview Avenue. But Howard left, and Big Jimmy moved with us into Holtville. And it was amazing. When the grass began to grow, we just had a little hand mower, and Jimmy would cut that. He'd take us some grass with that lawnmower. He was a tremendous worker with the hand mower. He just pushed that thing up and down the fields. But in 1991, at that particular time, we were applying for green card to stay in the United States. We needed the green card to stay. And we were denied. We were denied the green card. So we were on hold for a little while we reapplied again, made an appeal. And in 1992, Angie's dad got real sick and was about to pass away into eternity. And so Angie had to go home. He died in March of 92, and so she had to go home. And you think things are coming to an end, but things were just beginning to really get going. So in 92, Angie went home, and then I followed her. But before we did that, we had another couple, Teddy, Lil's brother, Teddy, had also come over at that time and wanted to be a part of what we were doing in the USA. And so we arranged, unknown to us and unknown to him, we arranged for them to come over and stay at what we now call Adullam House, but it was New Convictions Outreach at the time. And then Angie's dad died, and we'd already made arrangements for them to come, so they couldn't sell their house. So what happened is, when Angie's dad died, we went back to England, and not knowing how long we were going to be there, but we were to stay in their house, and they were coming to stay in our house, the house that Mary Ralph had purchased. They were coming to stay in that. So it was an incredible arrangement by God, that he made provision for us. He knew what was going to happen. And that's amazing. God knows what's going to happen. And God has made provision before we can even think or ask. That's the truth. So that Teddy and Janice fitted into our house. I had a guy called Big Mac that was coming out real soon. He was a Muslim that got wonderfully saved. And so we were kind of worried about him. But Teddy and Janice were going to take care of him. So we went home. Angie's dad, Julie, died, and we went home, and we were home for a year. And during that whole year, Dr. Ralph provided for us, sponsored us continually throughout that year. And it was a difficult year, always dreaming about America. Our kids had loved the school that they'd gone to, so it was a big change for them. They loved the school. And before they went, nearly all the kids in their school petition for them to stay in the USA. It was amazing how many people, when we finally had to go, because we'd applied for a green card. Angie's dad had died. But so when we went home, we had to reapply again. So we made arrangements to our lawyer in Atlanta, Madden Kramer, to meet a lawyer in London. And we did all this. And so we got a lot of information from people, local people, the Attorney General, and everybody got behind us, wrote us letters and to the immigration people. And so we were just waiting on the Lord. And finally, we got the opportunity to go and get our green cards, and met in London. And we had, as I said, we had all the information that we had. And by that time, if you recall, at the state had lost in Liverpool and Lancashire, in England, they'd lost all my records. They lost all track of my records because one building, they changed buildings, and they didn't know, unless someone gave them the exact dates of the offences that I'd committed, that there's no way they could find them records. So that was I guess in the 80s, but now it's the 90s, and I'm reapplying for that green card. And so what I had to do was, the lawyers stressed that we could find any of the records that would be good. So I went from court to court, from place to place, found whatever records I could. We went down to London, and I'm armed with a stack of my records like this. There was 13 altogether, not all prison sentences, but there were lots of convictions. And so I went armed to meet with the immigration and to apply for my green card. Got the girls wonderfully dressed and took them down. We also had letters from, I guess, every dignity in Alabama, and the kids out of the school wanted our kids to come back. So we went, and lo and behold, met with the lawyer, went into the immigration office and stood there talking to the lady. And she asked me how we got into the country. She said, "Well, how did you get into the..." Oh, first of all, she said, "Is this just one conviction?" I said, "No, ma'am, these are all convictions." And she looked, and she did, without looking at the record, she said, "Well, how on earth with all these convictions did you get in the United States?" So I told her. I said, "Well, in Scotland, and when we originally applied to leave in 86. I said I went to the 84, sorry. I went and I applied, and they asked me about convictions. I told them 13. I told them that they said, write to the Crown, so I did, wrote to the Crown, and the Crown wrote back, said they couldn't find any trace of my records. And so the lady said to me, "Well, they made a mistake." I said, they didn't make a mistake. She said, either you're telling lies or they've made a mistake. I said, I'm not telling lies, ma'am. That's what they did. I said, the Crown wrote me a letter. I passed that letter to the embassy. And the embassy said, when I applied, they give me a visa to the United States for 10 years. And she said, well, someone's made a mistake. I said, ma'am, it was the embassy. She said, they don't make that kind of mistake. Anyway, she said, we'll call back in the morning. As far as I'm concerned, you denied. So we were disappointed. Went back to the lawyers and we told him what had happened. And he said, well, give me the pink slip. And I said, what pink slip? And he said, the pink slip that they give you on denial. I said, she never gave me any pink slip. So he said, okay, go home and let me handle this. And so the next day, he told me to call him 9:45 in the morning. I called him and said, it's Pete Spackman. He said, yes. He said, you got your green card? And I said, we did. And he said, yes. I said, what happened? He said, that pink slip that you're supposed to get. I went to the embassy this morning and I asked her, you don't make mistakes? She said, no. And he said, you didn't give them the pink slip? She said, yes, I did. He said, if you open your files, and she opened the files and there was the pink slip. God will make a way where there's no way. And so it's an incredible transaction. God had made a way. God wasn't finished with us yet. Things were changing fast. And we were about to come back to America, but we had no idea what the future was going to bring. But what a future it was. Ruthie Ann was only 2 was just turned 2 when we came back. And I guess it was March of 1993 we came back. And we were in for great changes and great surprises in our lives. I didn't realize how far I was going to travel with the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. Tomorrow I'll share a little bit more. May the Lord bless you. Hope you've understood what I said this morning. Thank you. Bye-bye.